good to be here. I appreciate your time. Appreciate you taking your time out to come and listen to me today. We're going to talk a little bit about workers' compensation. And everybody's favorite subject to talk about early in the mornings, right? Nice, exciting topic. I know, yeah, like she said, we'll talk a little bit about some slips, trips, and falls, and go over some stuff. But first of all, this is a presentation I did at a Prima conference that we have here in Idaho, which is a risk management conference. And so, you know, workplace accidents and injuries they are upsetting. Okay, people getting hurt on the job is upsetting for both that employee and the employer. Right? Nobody wants to get hurt. You know, especially while they're working. So, why do we have workers' comp insurance? Okay, what's it for? What's it about? Thanks, guys. So basically, 100 years or so ago, they decided that we needed some kind of insurance to protect the employees and the employers. All right, so the business owners and the employees. Okay, people were getting hurt on the job, and they didn't have any way to get their medical paid for and get compensated for their time off, all right, unless they went and sued their employer. So they had to take legal action to sue the employer in order to get any of their wages or any of their medical paid for. And it was very inefficient. And so what was happening is it was taking a long time, and then the business owners, the employers, they were getting, you know, sued for multi-millions of dollars or whatever, you know. And so, you know, all the state legislative bodies came together and they decided they need to figure out a way, a system that would affect, you know, both the employee and the employers, to protect them both. And so they came up with the workers' comp system. And like I said, this was probably 100 years ago, so it's like in the early 1900s or so like that. So, but why do we have it? Well, you know, we have it because we're all human. Okay, we all have tendencies to do things that we look back upon and say, "Oh, that's probably not my best idea that I've ever had to do." Right? We make mistakes and stuff, so people end up getting hurt on the job. And we do things that sometimes just don't make any sense, right? And sometimes we're proud of ourselves because we thought, hey, we got the job done, right? And we might even brag about doing, you know, some of these things that happen or whatever, you know, if we're not getting hurt, that is. So but yeah, no, it's important, you know, that we have this. How does it work? Well, you know. What the history that I was talking about, what they came up with is they call it a no-fault system compromise. All right, and what that did is that gave the employee the right to sue their employer. All right, but it gives them compensation. All right, so as an employee, if you're hurt on the job, right, you're going to get your medical expenses paid for. All right, and if you're out of work for longer than 5 days, you're going to get compensated for that time loss. Okay, and so then on the flip side of that, the employer, they accept the liability that there's hazards that go on with that job, but they also gain financial protection because then that employee is not going to sue them for, you know, that compensation. And so it's a win-win for both the employee and the employer. And again, the employer, their assets are protected, there's minimized time spent on claims. The employee, there's reduced hardship due to lost wages, and they get rehabilitated, all right? They get rehabilitation services. So who pays the premium, all right? Well, of course, the employer, they actually write the check, right? They pay the premium that's associated with the policy. But that money has to come from somewhere, all right? And we'll get into what we call an experience modification. All right, and for lack of better terms, an EMOD, an experience modification, EMOD is a credit score basically for the safety of a company, or in this case, a city. All right, and so, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that. The higher this EMOD is, the more the company, or the city in this case, the more they have to pay for their insurance. The lower that EMOD is, the less they have to pay for their insurance. All right. Now, if the city has to pay more than what they're rated at for insurance, that money has to come from, more than likely, you know, new equipment that you guys might have, you know, bonuses that you guys might have, raises, and things like that. So in effect, everyone pays for it, right? Because the money has to come from somewhere. What does it cost, right? The way that they figure out the insurance, the premium, is they take the payroll, all right? So each department here has a payroll, right? And then, but each department also has what they call a class code. And depending on the amount of hazards, right, that are associated with the job, for instance, say like the clerical class code is 25 cents per $100 of payroll. All right, so they'll take the $100,000, you know, in payroll for the clerical employees, and then it's, you know, it's 25 cents per that $100 of payroll. And then they'll take all the other class codes, say for like your, and I don't know like the specifics for a lot of them, but I do know that like your construction workers and stuff like that are like $10 per $100 of payroll, because there's a whole lot more risk associated in construction than there is in clerical. Okay, people fall off roofs and things like that, and so it's more expensive to have that. And so they'll take that and then they multiply it times your experience mod. Okay, so the experience mod, we talked a little bit about this. It modifies the premium based on your past experiences. Okay. So this is how it works. All right, they're going to take a 3-year running history, all right, of losses that a company, or the city in this case, has had. And they're going to look at these years, 2016, 17, and 18. And depending on the losses versus what the city pays, so they're going to pay, you know, $500,000 for insurance, and that's really, you know, that's pretty accurate actually. They pay about that per year, $500,000 per year. If you have $500,000 in losses, okay, that's 100% loss ratio. Okay, so they're paying in $500,000 and they're losing $500,000. And where those losses come from are injuries and accidents, right? So that's all of your medical that has to be paid and compensation to the employees for time missed. Okay, so that's 100% loss ratio. All right, and so insurance companies, well, they have to make money too. Okay, now the state insurance fund, we're not for profit. All right, and so what happens with us is that any excess or any profits that we make at the end of the year, we give back to the policyholders in a dividend. Okay, but we still have to be financially stable to be able to pay all the bills and stuff, right? And so, you know, once you start seeing these companies with their loss ratio of, you know, 100% and higher, those people are not insurable, and so we end up having to get rid of them. Okay, and so and then they go to a whole other place. It's called the assigned risk pool, and that's just, we're going down a rabbit hole at this point. So, but what they're doing is they're looking at a 3-year history of that loss ratio, and there's 2 different types of injuries that go into these losses. Okay, there's 2 different types of injuries classifications. There is a, I may be getting ahead of myself here, for sure. Not here. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a second. Sorry, guys. Remember, 3-year running window of losses, All right, and then the EMOD of a 1 is average, because if you were to take that rated, we take the class code in the payroll, and say that it comes out to be $100,000, and then you multiply that times 1, then you're going to pay $100,000. Okay. If you have an EMOD that's greater than 1, say it's a 1.5, okay, and you have $100,000, you multiply it times 1.5, it's going to increase what you have to pay for your insurance. If it's a 0.5, then it's going to decrease, right? So you're roughly paying half of what you should be paying for your insurance. So my job is to go out and work with companies and things to try to help them get that experience mod down as low as possible, so that they're not spending more money than they have to for their workers' comp insurance. So, and the way that we do that is that we look at safety, okay? We look at training, we look at all of those different types of mechanisms. It's called loss prevention, loss control. So again, they'll take that class code times the EMOD, and then they come up with the premium, okay? Let's get canceled. So, again, if you have a premium of $10,000 and your EMOD is a 1.10, you pay $11,000. If you have a $10,000 premium and your EMOD is a 0.9, you pay $9,000. So it's instead of see right here, it's 1. So this means that you're paying $1 for every dollar of insurance you have. Up here, you're paying $1.10 for every dollar of insurance you have. Here, you're paying 90 cents for every dollar. That's another way to look at it that might make it easier to think about this. That EMOD is extremely important. It can make a big difference in your premium that you pay. Now, again, here we'll talk about there's 2 different types of injuries and accidents. Okay, there's a medical only claim, all right, and then there's a time loss claim. And it's up here somewhere. All right, so a medical only claim is to say that you're injured on the job, you go seek medical treatment, but you're back to work within 5 calendar days. All right, if you can get back to work within 5 calendar days, that's a medical only claim, and there's a discount associated with that claim of 70%. All right, so if you have a $10,000 medical bill, only $3,000 of it is going to go against that loss ratio that we talked about earlier, right? Because remember, you have your loss ratio, then you have what you pay in premium, you have your losses and what you pay. Okay, so and then you have that loss ratio. You want to try to keep that loss ratio as down as low as possible to keep your experience mod down. If you get a 70% discount on the cost of the claim, then that's huge in going in to figure out that experience mod. And then there's a time loss claim, all right, and that's anyone that misses more than 5 days of work. All right, so if you miss more than 5 days of work, what happens there is that the state insurance fund, we have to write you a check. We have to compensate you. That's the compensation part of it. All right, so there's the medical. So all of your medical bills are paid. And then if you miss more than 5 days of work, you get compensation. All right, but if you get compensation, those go into that loss ratio calculation. They go in at 100%. Okay, so they're not discounted. So they're fully weighted, is what the insurance term would be for that. If there's $1 paid in to time loss, it goes in at 100%. All right, and so what we try to recommend to policyholders, insurance owners and stuff, is to try to offer return to work light duty. Okay, try to get the employee back to work within the doctor's restrictions. Okay, it's all physician based. It's if you go in and your doctor says take 2 weeks off, you have to take 2 weeks off. Right? You're into that time loss portion. It's going to go in at 100% towards the experience mod. All right, and so it is what it is. But if you can go in and tell the physician, the doctor, that the company has some restricted duty, some light duty, then you can go back to work, within those 5 days, and get a 70% discount on the cost of that claim. Okay, and so we highly recommend that they try to do that as much as possible. This is an example of what doing that does to somebody's experience mod and how it affects what they pay. So this is what we call, this is a rating sheet from the NCCI, which is the National Council of Compensation Insurance. And these are the guys that go out and just that factor all of the experience mods. Okay, the insurance companies they don't come up with these numbers. It's all done by this third party, and then they give it to the insurance companies, and then the insurance companies know how much to charge the people for their insurance. So this is what the expected losses are for this company right here, and this is the actual losses. Okay, and so they were expected to lose $218,000. They actually lost $175,000. That put their experience mod at a 1.14. All right, that added $19,000. That 1.14 added $19,000 onto the cost of that premium. Okay, so not only were they paying their premium, but they are having to pay an additional $19,000 because of these losses in that number, that experience mod. Now, we're going to take away a couple of these claims right here that were time loss, or we're going to turn them into a medical only. All right? So they're going to get discounted at 70%. Okay? That, in return, puts their actual losses at $166,000, and it decreases the experience mod down to a 1.07. That saves that company $9,529 for a year. But remember, it's based on 3 years, a 3-year, rotating 3 year. And so over 3 years, that's going to save them $28,587. Okay, so that's a lot of difference, a big difference, just for 3 claims that they turn from time loss to a medical only. Okay, and so and still that's still over the a 1. And I work with companies and things that they have E-mods of like 0.6. So they're paying 60 cents for every dollar of insurance that they have. So they're saving a lot of money. And then they have that money to give back to, their employees and for bonuses. Or they might buy themselves a boat. I don't know. But, they're saving money regardless. There again, we talked a little bit about the medical only versus time loss. You can, okay, so one time loss claim of $10,000, all right, has the same effect, 20 medical only claims of $1,666. So they're weighted the same. So you can have 20 of those versus 1 of these. And so it's that important, really, to try to get employees back to work within those 5 days, because it saves a lot of money. Not only that, but it's also proven to help, the employees heal faster in most cases. Not all cases, but in most cases. It's also better for people psychologically, right? Because you're at work, you're around your coworkers, you're not sitting at home on your couch, right? Watching Jerry Springer, seeing commercials for lawyers, right? Saying, "Are you hurt on the job? I'm the tough hammer," whatever. So yeah, it's better for people to be about doing their work and stuff. So that's why it's important. So, what causes most claims? All right. Well, at the Idaho State Insurance Fund, we go by the principle of behavior-based safety. All right. And so we say that 85%, and we don't just say this. We actually have the science, the data to back this up. So 85% are the result of unsafe behavior. All right. Or conditions brought about by unsafe actions. So if you think about that, so it's unsafe behavior, unsafe actions or conditions, or both. It can be a combination of both. And the fault lies with the safety system. All right. The basic causes are the result of the management system, rarely with the individual. Now, that being said, as an individual employee, if you have a supervisor that is implemented a safety system, they have their safety meetings, they have the policies and procedures, they train you on those policies and procedures, you're held accountable to follow those, right? And when it really comes down to it, the employee is really the one that is in charge of their own safety, honestly. The employer, your boss, they can do whatever they can. They can be a good example, they can train you, they can teach you, they can do everything. But if you don't follow those practices, then it's kind of up to you. But if it does start at the top of a company, right? Your managers and things have to implement and push that onto their employees. So some of the basic principles of safety, like we said, unsafe behavior, unsafe conditions, combinations of both. So in 2018, these were the most frequent causes of loss, and this was the highest cost of loss. All right, overexertion. So we're talking about sprains and strains, and then slips, trips, and falls were the highest cause of loss. Guess where the city of Rexburg sits in with these trends? Exactly right here. This was your most frequent, and this was your highest cost. It's right there. And so when we met with the city and we talked about your guys' safety and what do we need to talk about, because I did what we call a trend analysis. I looked at all the injuries and accidents over the past 5 years. I looked at what's the most frequent cause for the city of Rexburg and what's cost the most. And these were it: overexertion and slips, trips, and falls. And so, okay, well, we need to talk about slips, trips, and falls. Okay, and so today we're going to talk a little about slips, trips, and falls. Overexertion, those are the most frequent. Those are your sprains and strains. That's everywhere. That's just about every policyholder in the state of Idaho is exactly the same. With your sprains and strains and slips, trips, and falls. We live in Idaho. It gets icy. It gets snowy. We're gonna, people slip in here, and so we just need to think about that and go over some things, reiterate it in our minds, and make our behaviors a little more. Think about what we're doing. Our situational awareness. I want to skip through some of this stuff. We don't want to talk about that. Okay. So remember that about 85% are the result of unsafe behavior or conditions brought about by our unsafe behavior. 98% of all accidents have causes which are subject to human control. All right. What are the other 2%? What do we think the other 2% are that are out of our human control as far as accidents? Well, natural disasters. Down south it's tornadoes. Whatever, earthquakes. So those are pretty high numbers. 85% are the result of unsafe behavior conditions, and then 98 have causes which are subject to human control. That's arguable. I've had people, trust me, I've had people argue about that. But we do have the data to back this up. So accident prevention is the responsibility of all employees, right? Kind of like we talked about. The employers can do everything they can. They can implement the policies and procedures, hold you accountable for them, have the safety meetings, but the responsibility is, the accident prevention is the responsibility of all employees. All right. Management is responsible for motivating employees to safety, and then enthusiastic supervision is vital. Okay. Supervisor is a vital part of the management team. They're, like I said, they're the ones that are kind of in charge of implementing it. It's a part of everything the supervisor does, same as work schedules, job assignments, or any other job. the key to preventing accidents is in the accountability of supervision, okay? And so, you know, as a supervisor, you just have to hold those employees accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable to make sure that you're being a good example, right? That you're following the policies and procedures, but then to hold the employees accountable, to making sure that they're doing it as well. And so, you know, it's their responsibility to establish safe work methods, you know, provide the personal protective equipment, provide all that, you know, safety equipment, things like that. And then to implement training, right? And so just like today, you're in here and you're training, and so it's, you know, it's important for the management to implement that training as well. Well, and so here's a good picture here, you know, of a crane. Do these things just fall over? No. You know, if they're set up correctly and they have all of the things in place, the barriers and protection and things, they don't just tip over. All right. And it's the same with anything. You know, with ladders, for instance. Ladders don't just fall over. Somebody does something on there, or it's not a safe ladder, or something like that causes it to tip, you know, or someone to fall off, or not maintaining 3 points of contact, whatever it may be. And so, you know, something happened here that was, they didn't follow all of their policies and procedures, and ended up tipping over. A couple of years ago in Seattle, there was the same thing that happened. They were taking the crane down, and they didn't use the right process in taking it down, and a strong winds came through, and it ended up, you know, knocking the crane over or whatnot, ended up killing a bunch of people, right? And so, you know, things like this happen, and unfortunately it happens. But we can, if we follow our policies and procedures, and we train and things like that, we can prevent these things from happening. And that's the whole message of today, is just, you know, trying to prevent things from happening, really. That's what it kind of boils down to. So you want to make sure that you're giving good, clear instructions, right? And you want to make sure that there's emphasis placed on the hazardous aspects of the job. All right. So, you know, doing that will help eliminate the most frequent causes of accidents, lack of knowledge or skill. All right. If an employee is expected to do a certain function that has hazards associated with it, then the supervisors are expected to show them how to do it safely and to train them on how to do it safely. Okay? And make for sure that that employee has the skill and knowledge to be able to complete that task in a safe manner without getting themselves hurt. And so what happens is, and this was in Nampa, what happens is that, you know, more than likely, this may have been someone that was, maybe they weren't on the regular route. You know, maybe they were new, you know, or something like that. And they lost their situational awareness, okay, and weren't really paying attention to what was going on around them. We can do the same thing with our cell phones. When we're walking down the street, we can be fixated and lose all of our situational awareness of what's going on around us, and we can walk right into something. You know, I've seen it happen. I've seen people walk right into street signs and things like that when they're talking, when they're texting or whatever on their cell phone. You know, or if they're driving and texting. You know, that's probably one of the biggest things that we've seen training-wise in 2017, actually, fatality. The number one cause of fatalities in the state of Idaho for on-the-job fatalities were motor vehicle accidents. Okay, and so there were more people killed on the job driving than any other way. And we're seeing that with the trends of cell phones and things like that, people are just being distracted. And so what we're recommending is that companies put in distracted driving policies, where they actually have it written, you know, and have an employee sign off saying that, you know, they've been trained on, or they're aware of the fact that they're not allowed to use their cell phone and text, and that they have to wear their seatbelt while they're on the job. Okay. And so, what can you do after that? You know, then it's kind of in the employee's hands to follow that policy and procedure, right? And so, you know, just reminding, and and that's what it takes, because we all are human, okay, and we're all going to do things sometimes that, well, we know we probably shouldn't do, okay, and so sometimes we just need to be reminded, hey, don't talk on your cell phone and drive. At the same time, don't text and drive, things like that. We want to make for sure that you're assigning the right people to the right jobs. Even experienced employees need direction sometimes. Here's a good example right here. So if you're going to have a work crew that is going to go and put signs out on the road, you want to make for sure that they know how to spell, right? Okay, so that's a very simple example of what we're talking about. Make for sure that the employee meets the criteria of the job that needs to be done, right? So, yeah, we might want to make for sure that these guys knew how to spell schools before they went out there. All right. Like I said, people tend to deviate from established work practice and injuries result. All right? And so we just have to be reminded. And we have to be reminded constantly, okay? And, I kind of compare it to almost like babysitting sometimes. It's like with your kids. You have to tell them over and over and over again to do something, Well, it's human nature. We're going to deviate from things sometimes. And so, supervisors, they just have to observe and correct what they're seeing and hold the people accountable. Here we go, a guy that, this is a dangerous situation, a guy standing in a bucket with a sledgehammer there and trying to put in a piece of rebar or whatever there. Might get that guy in the head and fall out of the bucket. So this is a little thing here. It's called the Heinrich's Law. So they're saying that for every 300 near misses, there's one major injury. Or for every 29 major injuries, there's one major injury, and so forth. Okay? And so this shows that it's important to report what we call near misses. Okay? So say that something happened on the job and you didn't need medical treatment, but you still slipped, or you fell down. Not bad enough to where you had to go seek medical treatment, but you should still report those things. Because the next person that comes along that same area or does that same task, they may seriously hurt themselves from that. And from about every 300 of those, there's a major injury that results, maybe a fatality or whatnot. So it's important to report those near misses and to document them and to follow up on them, to make sure that they're getting taken care of. So here's another poor example of what to do with scaffolding and a bucket. We want to make sure that we're maintaining our equipment and the facilities are in good condition. And so, what we're talking about here is preventative maintenance, right? So on all of you guys' equipment, on your trucks, your heavy equipment, things like that, make for sure that you're showing your preventative maintenance logs. You're documenting those things and keeping them. All right. That way, if an accident comes up, you can show that it wasn't the equipment's fault, basically, right? Because if it's documented and showing that the equipment is in good working order, then you know that it wasn't the equipment that was faulty. And those things are important to have for legal reasons and things like that as well. Lawyers and things want to see those documents to show that you're keeping the preventative maintenance law as well. Good. We do things that sometimes that we can be proud of, ingenuity, but at the same time, is it really correct, or is it really safe? So this brings us into common sense, all right? And one thing that I've learned since working for the State Insurance Fund is that there's really no such thing as common sense. I'll sit down and I'll talk to a business owner, and I'll ask them certain things about, hey, have you trained your employees on this, and they'll say, well, that's common sense. I don't need to tell them that. Well, that's wrong, okay? We can't assume anything, all right? So common sense is either bad experiences or it's good training, all right? And so, we don't want someone to have to go through a bad experience to learn something, okay? We want to make for sure that we do the good training part. One of the things that I hate having to ask people is, do you have a footwear program for your employees, okay? Do you require them to wear closed-toed shoes? And I'll be at an iron worker site, and they'll look at me like I'm crazy. It's like, well, I have to ask, because there was a guy that was doing your job that had sandals on, Chacos or whatever, sandals on the job, and ended up losing some of his toes, right? And so it happens, okay? And so we have to make for sure that everybody is on the same page, and that, we can't assume anything. We can't assume that anyone knows anything, actually. And so you have to just train on everything and hope for the best. So keep texting, see you soon, things like this. Common sense, right? I mean, this is a picture we took, all right? It's common sense how to put a motorcycle helmet on, isn't it? Maybe. Obviously not. Okay? We didn't make this up, by the way. This work has been accident-free since Joe left. We all know that one guy or girl, right? They're just prone, man. They're prone. So, as a manager or whatnot, they choose the employees, you train them, you observe them, and you correct them, and ensure that they perform the task safely. And you want to make sure that you have clear communication. Is this really clear communication here? Keep right and we're curved to the left. I mean, this is my favorite one though, right here. So so Suzanne here was leaving. All right, she's retiring or she's leaving for another job. So we call in to the bakery and we say, we need a cake for Suzanne. We want it to say, best wishes, Suzanne, and underneath that, we will miss you. All right? And so literally, they put best wishes, Suzanne, underneath that, we will miss you. All right? So being clear and concise, all right, in our directions, all right? Common sense. No such thing, right? And they didn't even spell underneath that right. Okay? That could be from a strong Texas accent too, though. So I don't know. All right. So again, 85% are the result of unsafe behavior or conditions. 98% of all accidents and causes which are subject to human control. Behavior-based safety. That's what we teach, we preach, we say it time and time and time and time again. Just make for sure that you're training, that you have those written policies and procedures in place, that you're going over those things, that you're documenting that you're going over those things, and that the supervisors are holding the employees accountable. And then just do it again, and do it again, and do it again. So, what can you do to implement a safety culture? Right? You can be a positive example. You can use encouragement. You can participate. You can address safety issues immediately. All right? And then if you as an employee go to your supervisor and you report that safety issue, you expect them to handle that immediately, okay? Or within as soon as possible. Because there's nothing more disheartening for an employee to go to their supervisor and report an unsafe condition and then nothing ever come of it, right? And so, hold your supervisor accountable as well, And if you don't feel like that it's being taken care of, maybe you need to go back and revisit that with them. So, but just reminders. Never permit unsafe actions just one time, okay? Well, we're just going to do it this one time, okay? Because that's when people end up getting hurt, okay? We'll make sure that you walk the talk, okay? This guy's got a ladder right here, but he's standing on the handrails, okay? And he's putting on his safety banner. Okay, so we're going to establish and maintain a safety policy, okay, for the company. We're going to say that the city of Rexburg cares about the safety of their employees. Okay? And then we're going to assign key employees responsibility and accountability for safety. Your supervisors are going to hold employees responsible for that, right? They're going to train them on that. And then the supervisors are going to be held responsible by their supervisors. Okay? If I were hurt on the job and I went to report it to my supervisor, she's going to hold me accountable if I were doing something unsafe. But not only that, her boss is going to hold her accountable for that as well. Well, are you training John on this? Okay? And so forth and so on, up the ladder. But when you're like the last man on the ladder like me, it goes way up. We're going to identify, eliminate, and control hazards. Okay? This comes in the looking at different safety, doing inspections, controlling the hazards, eliminating unsafe work procedures, and following up to ensure that the corrections are made. So this year is a failure of either paying attention and following the safety policy and procedure, or not having a procedure in place. So what happened here? Yeah, they're working on their telerotor or their engine, and he or she got the hair caught in the shaft, ripped all the hair out. Okay. So what would be a good policy or procedure to have for this? Well, if you have loose clothing, don't wear loose clothing. Or if you have long hair, keep your hair up. Okay? Things like that. So we want to make sure that we report and investigate all incidents. All right? Even your near misses. Because remember, for every 300 of those, somebody can get seriously injured, killed. Make for sure that you're keeping accurate logs and that they're up to date. Right? You want to make sure that you train supervisors, employees in the safe procedures and job hazards. You want to schedule safety meetings and encourage participation, right? You want to make sure that you have your safety, and the more that hazard that's associated with the job, the more regularly you want to hold your safety meetings. If you work mainly in just an office environment, you may be able to get away with having a safety meeting a couple times a year. Okay. If you work in the field and you're constantly out and climbing on ladders and doing things so forth and so on, you need to have them more regularly. I'd say monthly. A lot of construction companies in the area have them weekly, and they'll start their day off with a safety briefing. All right. And nowadays they're starting with stretching, so they'll have all these big dudes out there that are construction workers stretching, because what it's doing is it's lowering their sprains and strains, which we saw earlier is the number one cause of accidents and injuries in the state of Idaho. Sprains and strains. And how are we getting away from that? Well, we're trying to encourage them to stretch, lift properly, drink more water, and all those good practices. Make sure that you have a early return to work program. Okay, this is where you try to keep that claim from going into a time loss, so you get that 70% discount on the cost of the claim. You want to make it a safety performance issue, just like any other part of a job. When you're going and looking at it, doing an evaluation, is this employee adhering to the safety policies and procedures? If not, then that needs to be addressed. Again, maintain accurate, up-to-date records. And we want to make sure that we communicate on a regular basis. Okay. And we want to celebrate those successes that we have. All right. If you have a good month or a good year, celebrate that. If nobody got hurt, or if you have a goal of X amount of people or whatever being hurt, and you surpass that and are successful, let it be known. Have a little picnic or whatever. Pizza. So what does a true safety culture look like? All right, a true safety culture, you can't distinguish any differences between a safety culture and a work culture. It's all the same, right? It's all the same. We don't have our safety culture over here and our work culture over here. They're combined. All right. So the way that we do our job is through safe practices. It should be this is how we run our business. This is what we do. This is our ethic. That's just how they do their job. There's no job so simple that it cannot be done wrong, and that's the truth. You know. Anybody any questions? Went to that? Good? All right. And we'll talk about some slips, trips, and falls real quick, and then we'll be done. If you have questions, please let me know. Let's see. All right. So as we talked about earlier, one of the most frequent causes of on-the-job accidents is our slips, trips, and falls. Now, there's nothing in here that you've probably not ever seen before. Okay? You probably know most of this stuff, or I would assume that you do. But then we can't assume anything. And so we have to train on that. All right? And then we have to just have reminders, subtle reminders and stuff. So, all right. So what are slips, trips, and falls? Okay. Well, we know what they are. We know what a slip is and a fall. When we fall off of something, or we trip over something. Right? The old banana peel. We were talking about yesterday that one of the most expensive claims that the city of Rexburg has ever had is somebody slipped on a bottle top on the floor. Right? Something just as simple as that. And that's the most expensive claim that the city of Rexburg has ever had. Okay? Because there were probably multiple surgeries involved, time off involved, salary. There's probably some type of a total or a temporary disability, right? And those things could go on for years. Okay? And so something as so simple as a bottle cap being on the floor can cost a lot of money. Okay? So there's two types of falls. All right? There's a same level fall and a fall from elevation. Okay? And they can both cause a lot of harm. All right? Just because someone has the same level fall doesn't necessarily mean that it's any less significant if they fell from an elevation. I've seen claims where people have slipped and fallen, just like we talked about. The most expensive one for the city of Rexburg is they slipped on a bottle cap and fell on. It was the same level fall. It didn't necessarily fall from a height. All right, and these things are caused from slips, trips, and falls from. And then you're looking at ladders, platforms, stairs, and loading docks. And so what do we do for our from elevation? We're supposed to have our fall protection on, right? We use our ladders properly, make sure that we maintain 3 points of contact on our ladders. Okay. These are some common tripping hazards and things like this. And I guarantee you that if we were to take a walk to the building right now, or if we were to go over to your office or to your building or wherever, we could probably find something like this. Okay. And so these are just things that you want to look out for. All right. And if you see it, address it. Okay. Fix it in some way that you can to make sure that is. You want to make sure that you secure your cables and cords. All right, with cord cutters and things like that. So what do we need to do here? I mean, this is simple, right? And I'm guilty as well, but a lot of times we just walk right past this, right? Well, at the very least, we should at least let somebody that maybe has the right equipment, let them know that this is going to be cleaned up, that it needs to be cleaned up, right? I would probably, some days, there may be days where I would just walk right past this. But the correct thing to do to prevent someone else from getting injured is to address it. Clean it up. Find somebody that can clean it up. Find something to put on top of it that shows that there's a wet surface here. You know, you go to the grocery store and see those, you know, signs up all the time and stuff like that. There you go. Here's a little wet force. I'd probably put it like, you know, closer around, you know, maybe 2 or something. I don't know. But yeah, just let people know there's a hazard there. Needs to be cleaned up. What about this? This is simple. These are simple things here, right? So we have a rug that's flipped over on itself. Okay. I've tripped on things like this myself, right? Not really paying attention, not just losing my situational awareness, right? Not paying attention to what's going on around me, maybe on my cell phone or whatever, and tripped over that. Okay. It takes 2 seconds to flip that back over. All right. Yeah. What else may be a solution to this problem? If this is something that is happening regularly, you know, and there was an office that I was helping them work, and I was noticing that they had rugs that were always flipping over, and they were a constant tripping hazard. And so what we ended up doing is we ended up getting them different rugs, you know, simple. You know, no more hazard there. They got a different rug. The ones that they had were too flimsy, you know, or too thin or whatever. It was a lot cheaper to buy a thicker rug or a new rug than for someone to potentially, you know, crack their head open or have a bad injury, right? So, what we got going on here? We have a tripping hazard here, right? Yeah. You sit right there. You can get your head here. Yeah. Right in the middle of the hallway. Yeah. So we have lots of tripping hazards and things in here, right? Lots of potential for injury. We may not even think twice about it. But this is what we want to talk about. We just want to bring recognition to it. Start looking for these things and stuff, and you know, try to take a proactive stance and you know, rectify the situation. Correct. What about here? You know, if somebody's not paying attention, you know, and again, I'll use the cell phone example because it's huge. They could just walk right into that. That would hurt. Now, there is a barrier up here, but is it doing a whole lot of good? I mean, I'd probably put it over it or, you know, or something. But hey, at least there's something up there, right? I don't know. So, you know, we want to make sure that you keep an organized and tidy workspace, right? Make for sure that your floor and your workspace are free of boxes, cords, cables, materials, and other objects. You know, no tripping hazards and things. Those little heaters that you put under your desk and stuff. Well, A, it's a fire hazard, right? They're supposed to be 3 feet away from any combustibles, right? And then B, the cords. Okay, so that's something to think about as well. But yeah, just making for sure that your workspace is tidy and clean, things like that. Keep your walkways and aisles clear of materials, equipment, and other hazards. Keep your cables and cords and wires out of the walk zones. Making sure that the pathway is clearly marked and free of obstructions. Right? I don't know who designed this walk path right here. Be careful on stairs, right? You want to make sure that you always maintain 3 points of contact, right? You want to use the handrails when climbing or descending the stairs. Don't rush or skip upstairs. Don't carry anything that will compromise your ability to hold on to the handrail or to be able to see, you know, over where you're going. When going to another floor level, take the elevator if you're carrying things using both hands. Like you said, don't carry a load that you can't see over or around. Use a cart. This is a good example of what not to do. This is, you know, a little better here. keep it close to your body, of course. You know, when you're lifting these up, you want to make sure that you're using your legs and not your back. Has anybody, like, and this is just a good example, I feel, as far as like we get complacent in things. Has anybody seen, like, if you were to put a box or something, how like a toddler would go and pick that box up? They'd go over there, they'd bend over, right? They'd pick it up, all right? But as we age and we get older, we get lazier. We'll go over there and we'll just bend over and pick it up, you know? It's just human nature in us, okay? And so we just have to remind ourselves and just, you know, don't use your back. Especially the older you get, the more important it is to really use your legs, not your back. So what is wrong with this picture? Anybody see anything wrong here? He's using a foldable chair as a step. My favorite first report of injuries that I'll go through and I'll look at the injuries and accidents that I've heard to see already. I'll go through and I'll look at the first report of injuries. And under the description it'll say employee was standing on and it'll be scratched out, and then over it'll say ladder. But you know darn well that they said, you know, bucket under there, scratched it out, they put ladder, you know. The ladders don't fall over by themselves. These aren't meant to be used as, you know, as climbing objects and stuff. But we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. Just making sure that we're you know, using the right equipment for the job. So it doesn't take that much longer to get the right equipment. So. Have a good handhold before stepping up. Place your foot on the step rung just in front of your heel under the arch. Always make sure you have 3 points of contact. Never stand on the top of a ladder. All right. Inspect your ladders before you use them, or inspect them on a regular basis to make sure they're in good working order, right? Make sure that you have good, you know, especially in Idaho here, with the snow, things like that. You want to make sure you have good shoes that have good traction when you're climbing in and out of your equipment. You know, with the snow on the bottom of your feet and it's all wet, and then you're walking into a building and slippery floors and things like that. You know, just take care of your shoes and try to dry them off the best you can before going into a building so you don't slip on the floor, things like that. You want to make sure that you always face the equipment when entering and exiting. Some good examples of how to, you know, make sure that you're having the three points of contact. The contact examples are 1 hand and 2 feet, or 2 hands and 1 foot. You know, and you know, just be careful. Don't jump off, or you know, when you're getting out. We see claims all the time that come in, and they're exiting their vehicle or their truck or whatever, and they, you know, hopped out instead of climbing down, and then they end up, you know, tearing up their knee or their back, you know, things like that. It happens. Here's some outdoor slip, trips, and fall dangers. Wet grass. You know, here's looks like they're trying to protect the port or something, but it's really a tripping hazard, right? Some mud, things like that. You're gonna get it on your shoes here, slippery and stuff. So, you know, these are everyday occurrences that we come into, right? Footwear is imperative. You know, making sure that you have the proper footwear on, and replace those shoes as they wear out. You know, making sure they have good tread. Different types of work environments require different types of soles on their shoes. You know, an office, they call it, you know, neoprene soles. Kitchen, rubber soles. Oil resistance soles in your machine shops. Slips, trips, and falls are preventable. Okay, they are. Just by talking about what we've been talking about, paying attention to where we're going. All right. Don't read, write, or text, or dial while you're walking. This becomes a part of our life. you know. I mean, this is a very common thing. You see it all the time. And it's the same with driving. You see it all the time. You're sitting at a red light and the light turns green and nobody's moving. And the person on the front car is texting or whatever, you know, it's aggravating too. If it's snowing or icy outside, you know, we're going to adjust our walking pace and stride, right? We're going to walk like a penguin. We're going to do the penguin shuffle, right? On the ice, okay? We're going to slow down, take small, careful steps, okay? We're going to walk slowly and carefully. One good example of the slip, trips, and falls when on ice, things like that, is think about like a stick of butter, all right? And then you put it onto a hot skillet, all right? So whenever you take that cold stick of butter and you put it on a hot skillet, what happens? It kind of just slides around, right? It's very slippery, okay? And so if you think about in the mornings, when you get in your car, all right, you have that heater going full blast, hot air is coming down onto your shoes, and it gets onto the soles of your shoes, okay? And then the ground outside is frozen, all right? So what happens when you take that first step out of your car? So you have that transferred energy, all right, that goes out, okay? And it's slippery, just like whenever you put that butter on that hot skillet, all right? So if you were to take a second and just kind of let that energy transfer and don't get out immediately, just kind of let it sit for just a few seconds is all it takes, all right? That gives you a little better traction when you're trying to get out of your vehicle in the morning. That's one example of what I can think of for that. You want to make sure that you're reporting your hazard promptly, all right? If you see a tripping hazard or cord or whatever, report it promptly and immediately, and then make sure that it's being taken care of. Know where you are looking, and look where you're going. Pay attention, be proactive, and be careful. That's it. Any questions? Yeah? I know that's exciting stuff, but you know, just keep it in mind. You know, like I said, this is what it kind of boils down to. Just pay attention, be proactive, and be careful. Right? Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
You guys are good to go. Just make sure that you have signed in so that we knew that you were here, okay? Okay.
That was education.